All right, we are live. It is Sunday, October 6th. Hey, everybody, how are you doing? I'm going to give you a minute to come on in. And yeah, we are live. We got a few things to talk about today. There's some things in the news that you all need to be aware of, and it's affecting your health. And you need to be able to know what's going on. You need to be able to go there and and you need to be able to advocate for yourselves, and of course understand exactly what's going on and be able to know, like, what is it that I'm talking about here. How do you know what's being put in your food? It's really just this continuous poisoning, if you will, of our food system. It's constant, it's chronic. We have so many health issues. I have stories to share with you about people who have had health issues who don't connect the dots. Last week, we talked about connecting the dots. And if you have something going on in your life, in your health, in your world, and you're not connecting the dots to what it is that could be causing it, then this is the show, this is the channel to help you stay enlightened, to help you be able to go, oh, wow, that's it. I really want everybody to have that light bulb moment. And so let me just post this over. Idaho Garden Girl is here. Thank you. Oh, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. I see that you say you're second, but I don't see anybody else in the chat. I do see 5 people watching. So if you are watching, could you please hit the thumbs up button for me? I would really appreciate that. It helps the algorithm, helps us to get more people to see the channel and, get this message out there. So Idaho Garden Girl, how are you doing? How is the garden? I just did another major haul today. I have tomatoes galore sitting in front of me that you can't see. If I try to turn my camera around, I lose signal to my camera, so I'm not going to do that. But it's been a great gardening season. We'll talk about gardening and growing your own food and what that means for you. Happy Mac, thank you so much for being here. Great to see you. Hey, Uncle Al, how are you? Ken Marth, oh my gosh, so great to see you here. And Ken says, I'm going to listen to your podcast tonight because it's so difficult to eat healthy when you're traveling. So Ken travels a lot. Now, I will tell you that I've done many videos on eating healthy and traveling. But Ken, I'm here for you. So if there's something specific that you didn't find in my previous videos, please let me know, because I'm here to try to produce as much useful content as I possibly can to people just like you, because I know it's hard. I know sometimes you get on the road. Now, if you're driving, it's actually a little easier because you can travel with coolers, you can stop at stores, you can shop before you go, you can get to your destination. So it's always better when you are able to do that. If you are flying, there's videos on this channel that I've talked about, that you prepare your food. You basically take like a picnic. It's a travel picnic. And so what you do is you just pack what you need for, let's say, your airplane travel. So maybe you make yourself I always do wrap sandwiches. Those seem to be easy. They're easy to eat. They aren't messy. So you have to take things that, aren't going to like fall apart. Or I also think about things that won't be too crunchy on a plane. So I like cucumbers. Cucumbers are crunchy, but not too crunchy. And then I always take sliced apples as well. So on a plane, if I'm traveling on a plane, I'll do a wrap sandwich. I'll do cucumbers, I'll do apples, and that's really about it. That's all I need. So, something super simple, but make sure it's really healthy, because if you don't take something healthy with you, and I take nuts with me too. But if you don't take healthy things on the road with you, whether you're flying or whether you're driving, then you will succumb to the junk. You get hungry and you're like, okay, I'll just grab that granola bar that is super high in hydrogenated fats and sugars, and that is not going to serve you. You'll have a crash. There's really not a whole lot nutritionally sound in it. So that's just the quick synopsis of some of the other videos. But yeah, so just you got to pack food when you travel. There have been times when I haven't packed food from Detroit to wherever I'm going. However, I do know, so I go to the Delta Lounge. Now, if you're not a lounge person, if you don't have like a membership in your airline's lounge, they're here in Detroit. Again, these are strategic things. So I don't know what your local airports have, but we have a Plum Market, and Plum Market it's kind of like a Whole Foods. It's our local. We have Whole Foods here as well, but Plum Market is really great too because all the food that they serve is fresh. You can get a breakfast there. You can get eggs and sausage, which they'll usually do like a chicken sausage, something that's like high in protein. So there are definitely things that if I don't have time to pack something here, I know there's a Plum Market at the airport and I can eat there. So you do have to think about food. I think that this is something that a lot of people, and I can't say it's not a priority, but it's something that most people don't think about. And so if you can make it a priority, if you can start thinking about what do I need to do to have nourishing food when I travel, then you'll start to think about what's at the airport. Apparently something just, I think the wind has been really going hard, and I think it just knocked over like one of the bins, and I think he's like not liking that very much. But when you travel, if you're traveling and you're thinking, okay, I just need nourishing food with me, then you can think about what do I need to take. If you don't have time, finding the places at the airport. The airports these days have so many more healthy options, and I think I'm so happy for that. Uncle Al says, be careful on TSA, warn them early. I'm not sure what that means, but if you're traveling internationally, that it could be a problem. I remember when I was going to Mexico 3 or 4 years ago, and I had all of my snacks, and I had we'd eaten our sandwiches on the plane. I think I had eaten the apples, and I got to Mexico, and I think I still had cucumbers left over. And they made me throw the cucumbers out. And I was like, oh, because they asked me too. They were like, do you have any food? And I said no, because when I think of that question, I think of like, okay, am I bringing like food stuffs, like quantities of things? And I was like, it's just a snack. Like I didn't think anything of it. And they're like, yeah, you can't bring cucumbers into the country. And I was like, oh, okay. So they made me throw the cucumbers out. And it's okay because I had already had all of my nourishment. I hate to throw the cucumbers out because they're so good, but it is what it is. So, there are certain things in other countries. So I would definitely say, if you're traveling internationally, it's something you need to be aware of for sure. But like I say, in general, if you're going airport to airport, you should be just fine. So, so find the choices that are going to, serve your health properly. So, thank you, Uncle Al, for always asking people to hit the thumbs up button. I appreciate that very much. Okay. So, let's see where we're at in here. And Uncle Al says worse is a cavity search. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I don't know what you're traveling with, if they're like asking for a cavity search, but one of my favorite shows, I'm going to digress 1 second. One of my favorite shows is any of the border shows, the, what is it? Border, it's Border Patrol or whatever. And it's, you know, it's constantly about people coming into other countries, and how they target people, what they look at. And yeah, they do. They don't necessarily do cavity searches per se, but now they just put you through an x-ray machine and they see if you have stuff inside your body. So yeah, it's not like they're like going up there with their fist or anything like that. But anyway, I love those shows, by the way. Let's see what Idaho Garden Girl says. When I used to travel a lot for work, I got to know different airports and what different restaurants were at each one and where they were located. It really, I mean, you have to think strategically like that. So I definitely appreciate that comment, you know, especially when we're talking about, you know, the topic today is food ingredients, the US versus everyone. And the reason that I named it like that is because we have some things going on here in the US that are frankly quite frightening, and that if we're not aware of it, and I don't know what's going on particularly in other countries, but I think that it's really critical to make sure that you're paying attention to whether it's the US, whether it's some other country. But in the US alone, we have things that, and I don't know, hold on one second. Oh, share screen. Okay. Here we go. Sorry, you think I've been using this for so many years now and I still, let's see. Okay, so we have a share screen and we're going to go here. So one of the people that I have followed for many, many years is, hold on one second. Her name is Food Babe Vani. I don't even know what her last name is. But hold on one second. So she's actually a massive advocate for us for what's in our food system. What is, let's see. Okay, so here we go. So you guys can see that, right? So one of the things that she's done is, I think I need to be here and scroll through. So there was she was in Washington, I think it was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago now, and they had a round table in Washington. It was Vani, and it was a multitude of other health care advocates. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he was one of them. And they were having this conversation about why do we allow so many toxic chemicals in our food here in the US, and yet other countries don't. And this is really such a critical conversation, because when, you know, if you guys have been following my channel since I started 2 years ago, you would know, or if you've just started following me, I'll reiterate, my story is such that when I was like 7, 8 years old, my brother was diagnosed with hyperactivity and my mom didn't know what to do. And the doctor, our pediatrician, had recommended that she put him on Ritalin. And she put him on one dose one day and said it turned him into a zombie. I also did a TED Talk on this, so you can definitely go look that up. I'll pull that up here while we're talking, but it's Dr. Paula Ruffin, TEDx Detroit. So you can look that up and see my TED Talk. So she figured out that Ritalin was not the answer. And back in what you guys were talking in the 70s, that she figured out that all she needed to do was change our diets. Now, what my mom did was she found this, it was called the Feingold diet. And it was Dr. Feingold. His diet, he's no longer with us on planet Earth, but his diet and his teachings, you can actually go, there is a website for him and what he teaches now, and which is the same. It's the exact same thing he was teaching back in the 70s. And what he was teaching was basically no artificial sweeteners, flavors, and colors. Like super simple. He actually, and this is like another level of things, but he talked about salicylate forming foods. So foods that actually mimic, they're like aspirin mimickers. And a lot of people have sensitivities to those. So those are things like grapes and apples. And what do most of your kids love? Grapes and apples. But if you can start to eliminate artificial sweeteners, flavors, and colors, you can start to accomplish so much with your health. So this is not just for kids. This is for adults too. And I have to tell you, I meet so many adults, in my practice. I've been in practice for over 26 years, and so many people, and they're like, adults, I have ADHD, ADD. And I'm like, no, you don't. You have a food issue, you have a gut issue. And if you remove the things that are flaring up your nervous system and preventing it from working properly, you wouldn't have this label anymore. So it's the labels that we place on ourselves because of what's in our food systems and the choices that we've been told that are okay for us. So this is really the message that I'm trying to get across. So this whole thing that happened a couple of weeks ago in Washington was advocating for us, the US citizen, to it was really just messaging for our government to change the rules here in the United States, because these things, if you see here, so let's say Fruit Loops. Now, first of all, you would never find Fruit Loops in my house. It's nothing I would ever buy, even if I'm in Australia. But just to give you an idea of what's happening here, you look here, and we don't need to go through each and every ingredient, but you can see here that the American version, first of all, the ingredient list is far more extensive than the Australian list. And also we have here, look at this, all these artificial colors. Now this BHT, this was another thing that my mom had discovered back in the 70s, was BHT, BHA, and then sodium nitrate and nitrates, which is in a lot of the cured foods, cured meats, bacon, for example, lunch meat. So my mom was like, we're not buying lunch meat, and I'm no longer buying bacon unless we really want it. Now she would buy bacon for a treat, but we didn't have it like we normally did. So she eliminated that from our diets. And my brother became, he became so much better. But here's a couple of other things too that I want to point out. So here's soybean oil and cottonseed oil. Now, soybean oil is one of the seed oils that we recommend that you avoid. So when we're talking about oils, we want to avoid soybean, vegetable oil, corn oils, canola oil, any of the oils. If you go to the store and you buy an oil in a clear container, a clear plastic container, you don't want to buy it. Like you want to just put it back down. If it's in a clear container, that means it's been so highly processed that it's now stable. What that means is that it went through this processing. It becomes rancid through the processing through the extraction process. And it has to be treated with all these chemicals, hexane and these other really nasty chemicals, to actually make it not stink. And then they put it into a clear bottle because now it's stable. But if you look at things like olive oil, good, highly pressed, first pressed, high quality olive oil, avocado oil, you'll see those are in dark bottles. So any oil worth its weight in health is going to be in a darker bottle because it can't stand the light. The light actually will cause it to go rancid. The light will cause damage to it. We don't want that. So we want to avoid anything that has these soybean oils. And look at this in the Australian version, is it doesn't even have any oils in it. Like, isn't that crazy? So why are we allowing this in the United States and yet other countries do this? And if you look here, so here's natural flavors, orange, lemon, lime. So it's actually flavored from these things. Now, in the United States, they don't have to tell you. You'll see natural flavors on the label, but the FDA does not have to tell you. They don't have to reveal what natural flavors are. But here in Australia, they are revealing that to you. And I think that's great because what are natural flavors? We don't know here in the US. It's this umbrella of flavors that they can put in and they don't have to tell us. So it becomes this deception that, it's a deceptive game that we as citizens, it's our health that actually takes the brunt of whatever game it is they're playing. I mean, this is really about big money, right? So, so Ken says, anytime I see a food product labeled bio, engineering ingredients, I don't even consider it. I've never seen a food product labeled bio, but yeah, I would agree with that. But one of the things too that, so Ken, I always want to tell Ken's story. Ken would go to the local, I'll just say 7-Eleven or, he would go to like a store locally near him where he worked, and he would buy apples because he was trying to make really healthy choices, which is great, right? Like you're like, oh my gosh, if I go into 7-Eleven, like I'm kind of like, this is great that you can get apples at 7-Eleven, or I mean, there's sliced apples in a packaging. A lot of the Speedway or the gas stations now, they'll have these healthier choices. So he was going in and he was buying these apples. And Ken, I would, comment if I don't get this story right, but I'm going to try to paraphrase and get this story correct. So he was buying these apples, and after a couple of weeks, he realized he wasn't feeling good and he couldn't figure out why. And he finally just sort of thought, I wonder if it's the apples. That was the only thing that he really changed. So he stopped eating the apples and he started to feel better. And what happened was he recognized that when you buy sliced apples in a package like that, they put chemicals in it to actually preserve them. So he was having a reaction to the preservatives that were being put in the apple, thinking that he was doing the right thing for his health. And this is how confusing it gets. This is how frustrating it gets here, where you're trying to do something good. You're trying to make these great choices, and yet we are getting poisoned by our food system, and that is not okay. So, that I tell that story all the time, Ken. Ken says, I still get gun shy. I'm going to say gun shy about buying fresh cut fruit, even at health food stores. And because why not? Why wouldn't he? Because he literally, it was damaging his health, and he had a severe reaction from fresh cut apples, you guys. So we got to pay attention to this. Happy Max says, orange Tic Tacs are white in Europe and don't taste like pie. I haven't had a Tic Tac in years. My mom used to buy Tic Tacs. That was her candy when I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, the artificial colors are crazy. Uncle Al says, I was going to college to get my food science and chemistry degree. Big business. My parents really push this. And I mean, from a food science and food chemistry perspective, there's so much that you may even have more of a high level understanding with all of the toxic chemicals that they're putting in our food today. So, once I got my AA and AS degree, I joined the military. I don't know what those degrees are, but anyway, so let's see. So let's scroll down. So anyway, so Food Babe, she was in Washington and showed these visuals to say, why are we doing this here? Let's see. I thought she had, hold on one second. Okay, so there's this, and you can go to her website. It's just foodbabe.com. You can click this petition for Kellogg's. Let me go back here because okay, so there was this letter to the CEO of Kellogg's, and this said, she says, I sent this letter below to Kellogg's CEO requesting a meeting. This is Kellogg's opportunity to step up as a leader in the industry and lead the way in producing safe products without artificial dyes and BHT. And she says in 2015, Kellogg's announced plans to remove artificial colors and flavors from their U.S. cereals by the end of 2018. This was widely reported in the media. This same year, Kellogg's told reporters that they were actively testing natural alternatives to be the preservative BHT used in many of their cereals. Almost a decade has passed. Hey, that's enough. Almost a decade has passed, and Kellogg's continues to sell cereals with artificial dyes and BHT, many of them targeting young children. I'm going to put a pin in that because I'm going to tell you about 30 years ago what they did. In addition, Kellogg's has launched new cereals made with artificial dyes, such as Baby Shark, Peeps, Fruit Loops, Scoops, ICE. Oh, I'm thinking IC. That's probably like the Slurpee, Elf on the Shelf, and Wendy's Frosty. Kellogg's cereals are produced in other countries such as UK, Australia, and Germany without these ingredients. Fruit Loops in Canada is colored naturally with carrots, watermelon, turmeric. If Kellogg's has already found a way to make their cereals without these controversial dyes, why should American children continue to be exposed to them unnecessarily? I launched a nationwide petition asking Kellogg's to remove artificial dyes and BHT from their cereals in the U.S., as they had committed to do. Our petition can be found at which has reached over 120,000 signatures from concerned parents and consumers. So I would encourage you to look at this. And then she says, I testified at the Senate Roundtable on American Health and DT. Let's see if we can go there. Hey, can you stop? My gosh. Okay, so hold on one second. I'm going to go back here. Okay. I'm inviting concerned citizens, health advocates, legislators that we would like an opportunity to schedule a meeting with you in advance. Okay, so she wrote this letter to Kellogg's, and it's just amazing that we're still dealing with this. You know, again, my mom knew this back in the 70s that we should not be exposed to artificial dyes. We'll just say the dyes. And it's not even, it's the colors, it's the sweeteners, it's the flavors. These things are toxic to us, like terribly toxic to us. So let's look at let's go down here. So we're going to look at the ingredients and see how they're affecting us. So Kellogg's doesn't use artificial colors and BHT in other countries. So artificial colors are man-made in a lab with chemicals derived from petroleum, a crude oil, and it requires a warning label in Europe. BHT is a risky preservative linked to cancer in some animal studies and an endocrine disruptor that interferes with hormones. Yeah, endocrine disruptor. This is why we have young girls at age 8 and 9 now starting their menstrual cycles. We cannot feed this stuff to our kids. Now, again, my mom was like, we are not having any of this. My favorite cereal growing up was Captain Crunch Berries. Okay. So I was like, that was it. We didn't have Crunch Berries and we didn't have Pop-Tarts anymore. Like two of my most favorite things. But she was like, no, we're not doing it. She had a bigger mission. She understood that by removing things from us as kids, that it was going to make us healthier children as well as healthier adults. So I really want to urge you as parents to make sure you are looking at these things, and feeding your kids this garbage is not a rite of passage for being a kid. It's a process that it will become difficult for you as a parent to say no to your child, but you know that you are placing them in a better place for their future. So artificial colors are derived from petroleum, may cause hyperactivity in children. Right there, that's what Dr. Feingold said back in the 70s. Hyperactivity. If your child has ADHD, ADHD, if you have ADD or ADHD, you have got to get away from the artificial colors because it causes hyperactivity and disrupts the immune system. That means you're sick. more often than not. Artificial flavors made from synthetic ingredients such as crude oil or coal tar. And it's cheaper than using real food. I mean, so if we can use something artificial, why not? There's a book, I've talked about this before in the podcast with, it's called The Dorito Effect, and by Mark Schatzker, I think he's the author. And he talks about in that book how there's like, can be over 130 toxic chemical ingredients to produce one flavor, like the taco flavor in Doritos. And what Doritos did was they ended up, they create their flavor, and then they put people through the testing of, let me see where I'm at here. I thought I can't get you back on this. That is not the screen I want you on. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to go back because I want us on this screen. I don't know why it's not clicking over. So then what they did was they did they do food testing to see what flavors do people like the most. And so in the taste testing, people, whatever flavor they picked, then they said, okay, we're going to pick. So let's just say the flavor was here. So they picked like just under that. And the reason for that is because if people loved this flavor, then if we only flavor it to here, they'll eat more, so that they're attempting. So the brain is like, I can kind of taste that. And if I eat more, I'll get to that, but they never do. So it causes you to eat more. This is part of the addiction process in our processed food industry, is that they underflavor things just a bit, just to trick you to consume more of the product. It's terrible. So, all right, I'm going to see if I can, let me go to share screen again. And let's see, here we go. Entire screen. So, sorry, you guys, I'm trying to, okay, we're going to go to here. Okay, so now if I go here, let's see. Okay, that does not look like you're seeing anything. All right, hold on. I'm going to unshare. Can't get it to work. Sorry. Okay, I'm just going to read to you. So, so we talked about artificial colors, artificial flavors, and then we have BHT, butylated hydroxytoluene, which is a preservative. Again, going back to the 70s, like I am just blown away that we're still talking about this today and how damaging it is to our health. When my mom knew this back in the 70s, like, come on, what is going on with our government, with our food supply? So BHT, my mom wouldn't buy anything with BHT. It says it's a risky preservative linked to cancer in some animal studies and an endocrine disruptor. There you go. We have another endocrine disruptor. An endocrine disruption doesn't just mean that your daughters will grow boobs earlier and start menstruating earlier. It means that it can actually like disrupt testosterone. It can disrupt your thyroid. It can disrupt so many other hormones in your body, which is like, it's how we function on a daily basis. And so she says, I'm not asking Kellogg's to start at square one and to reformulate these cereals without these ingredients, as this has already been done in other countries. As all of Kellogg's cereals are free from artificial colors and BHT in Europe and Australia. Kellogg's has specifically sold Fruit Loops and Unicorn cereal in other countries without artificial colors or BHT. So they already have the formula. So if they have the formula in other countries, what is it, you guys? I don't know. This is what we're trying to get to the bottom of, that every single cereal that is here in the US has an equal partner somewhere in another part of the world that does not have these artificial ingredients. So if we can get rid of the artificial ingredients, we can get some much safer products for our kids. Now, again, I'm not even advocate like don't feed your kids that garbage to begin with, but it's massive, massive deception, and I think it needs to stop. Um, so I'm going to get into the. I have to tell you about what they did. Like I said, 25, 30 years ago, but I'm going to read some of these comments first. So, oh, Happy Mac says, I got knocked offline. My Wi-Fi stinks. Oh, well, bummer, but I see you're back, so that's good. Captain Crunchberries and diesel fuel equals to 3 sticks of TNT. That's an interesting comment. I don't know. I'd have to see what you're actually talking about there, but again, I don't know what it's doing to our health. So it's just we don't need red food dye in us. And Tigsy, hi Tigsy, thank you so much for joining. It's nice to see a new face on here. Tigsy says it's more money for the rich in the US to keep people sick. And when we think about our health system here in the United States, we're like number 30 or 32 on the mortality scale for health across the globe. We have the most money, or we have a lot of money, and our health system should be like top notch. But we have the sickest people here in the United States. 50% of our children suffer from chronic disease. This is not acceptable. Our cancer rates have skyrocketed. We have companies like Bayer, who makes cancer drugs, who just bought Monsanto, who makes Roundup, which causes cancer. What do you think is going on there? It's a bit mysterious, or not, when we have these companies who are like, oh, we're going to cause cancer. Hey, no problem. Let's just buy you because we make cancer drugs. So you keep producing your product that causes cancer, and we have the answer with the anti-cancer drugs. No, we have to be this grassroots movement that says we're taking our health back. We're not standing for any of this, and you need to take the garbage out of the food. And the only way we're going to stand up against this is to stop buying it. Like, you really have to stop buying it. We don't have cereal in this house. Even when my daughter was little, she went through a very short cereal phase, but we're not a cereal family. So, it's not like cereal it raises blood sugar. I don't know that there's any good cereals out there. Even people are like, oh, granola is healthy. Most of the granolas out there are so high in sugar that I won't touch them. I actually found a yogurt, because one of my favorite snacks is, or not yogurt, granola. One of my favorite snacks is yogurt. So I make my homemade yogurt. It's yogurt with granola and a little cinnamon on top. I put some unsweetened coconut, and I put a little drizzle of maple syrup. And I haven't made my own granola yet, which I probably should. But I actually found a granola that's completely unsweetened. It actually, I think it has like a little apple juice or something like that. But if you look at most of the granolas, they're sweetened with cane sugar. They're so sugar heavy. So you want to avoid that stuff. So I prefer, if I want something sweet like that, I'm going to put a little bit of maple syrup on top. I want to control the sweetness. I don't need anybody else doing that for me. So I think it's just, it's important that if you have a little bit of sweet tooth, you want to snack like that, don't buy that stuff. Try to find the hacks that you're going to be able to, manage the sweetness yourself with something a little bit healthier. Happy Max says, I stay away from toluene and anything with a benzene ring, which is so many of the chemicals that are in our food. And those, let's see, the last I checked, toluene and benzene did not grow from the ground in a plant. Just saying, I can't go pick it outside. So, if you can't go outside and pick whatever it is that we're talking about, you shouldn't eat it. So, Uncle Al says this goes back to World War II in the 50s. Okay. All right. Well, I will have to look that up. So thank you for that enlightenment. Um, oh, Tigsy says, I've been in your chats before. I met you earlier. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Okay. Thank you. It's so great to see you. Thank you so much for joining. I just jumped into Howie's live, a couple of them last week. And I was telling him, I said, YouTube stopped showing me his channel. I thought they unsubscribed me. So I always like to jump in there. We love our Howie and Food Forest permaculture. So yeah, so thank you. I appreciate you being over here. And Uncle Al says, I like to blow stuff up with homemade okay. And Ken says, you can't make money off healthy people. That is so 100% true. So if we keep you sick, we make more money. It's so sad, isn't it? It's so sad because if you think about it, if we have a healthier community, a healthier environment, a healthier population, we can be more productive in so many other ways. Why does it have to be so negative? It's really it's tragic in my mind. So let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah. So Tigsy, you were on the other day when I was telling him that. That's right. Yeah. Idaho says, my doc had me do a NutrEval test and I have benzene in me. How did it get there? How do I get rid of it? This is a great comment, Idaho Garden Girl. And so I have a patient who I've been seeing her since she was pregnant. I take care of her and her 2 young boys. She's got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And we tested the 4-year-old and he's glyphosate positive, which is Roundup. And so I think this goes to that. So I'll tell you this story and that you're like, how did it get there? We try to live our good, healthy lives and we try to grow our own food. And so this kid is like, his like 80%, it should be 0 in our bodies, glyphosate, which is Roundup, should be 0. And he was 80%, which explains so many of his behavioral issues. And yeah, she was mad, not at me, but she was like, how did it get there? I made sure when I was pregnant, and pre-pregnancy, like she did all the things that she needed to make sure that she had a healthy pregnancy, that she was preparing her body before pregnancy so that she could have a healthy pregnancy, and took her prenatals and did her detox prior and didn't eat junk when she was pregnant. And they raise chickens and they eat everything organic. And she's like, how did that happen? And I said, the unfortunate thing is that these are why they're called forever chemicals. We don't know where they come from. So chelation becomes very important. How do we chelate? Sometimes that is a conversation with somebody who can actually do IV therapies for chelation. Some of those toxic chemicals can chelate through like bentonite clay if you're taking that in your diet, or diatomaceous earth. Those are things you would have to look up with the benzene. But it's really incredible when you think about, and I've done so many videos on forever chemicals and that's why they're called forever chemicals. They do not leave our bodies and they do not leave the soil, and they have a compounding effect. So, we can say, okay, one chemical, it's fine. But not when you combine it with another and another and another and another. And then you look at all the things you're being exposed to on a daily basis. And then over the course of your life, if your body doesn't have a sound way to get rid of these, I've talked about this multiple times, which is why if the liver's not healthy, if the gut isn't healthy, it will not get rid of these chemicals safely, because your body has to be able to send them through the liver for detoxification, get them through the kidneys, process them through the gut. But if your gut's not healthy, which most people don't have a healthy gut because of the environment we live in, because of the lifestyle choices we make, even if you have a pristine diet and you're making great lifestyle choices, you probably have some level of gut issue. but we really want you to be as metabolically sound as possible. So that's what you need to be shooting for, is how metabolically sound can I be? Can you be 100% metabolically sound? I don't know, you guys. I don't know. I strive for it myself. But again, it's, when we look at everything that we're exposed to, this is why it's really important to pay attention on a daily basis and make sure that you are doing all the things that are under your control. We're not going to control what they're putting in our food. If they want to put these toxic chemicals, then don't buy it. Like, that's the bottom line, right? I don't care how much you like Fruit Loops. You can no longer buy it. Happy Max says, my tinfoil hat gives me a headache. Mine too, my friend. It's, yeah, it's kind of crazy sometimes, right? I-58 Firms, hey, welcome in. Thank you for being here. Says, it's somewhat comforting that both sides of the political spectrum in the US are beginning to see the problems with government complicity and poor health. I hope Make America Healthy Again works. I am 100% on board with that. Make America Healthy Again, or just Make America Healthy. Like, this is really what we're looking at. And this was, so RFK was actually at that roundtable in Washington last week with Vani, Food Babe. And I need to go back. I've got to find it and watch the whole thing, because I've had a passion for food and food choices and chemicals in our food and the ingredients since I was a kid, because that's what my mom, that's what she taught me. Like, she's instilled this in me. This is why I'm here today, because she taught me these things as a 7-year-old, and taught me how to read ingredients and said, does this sound like food? It has BHT and MSG and BHA and nitrates and nitrate and all these other chemicals. And I'm like, no. And so she like burrowed it into my brain that no, we cannot eat this stuff. We cannot put it in our bodies if we want something better for ourselves. So Uncle Al says, same chemicals are used in chemical warfare. See most breakfast cereal and Roundup. That is 100% true. I had somebody comment on I did a video on oatmeal, and I think the chemical is chlormequat, and that is coming from imported oats. Oh gosh, it was a year ago that I did this video, but it's coming from imported oats. And most of the oats in the US, when they're not organic and they are genetically modified, have this chlormequat ingredient. And it's not regulated. It's I forgot how it goes. We can't use it here in the US, but if they use it in Europe on the oats and they ship it, then we accept it. Like, it's things like that. It's like, well, wait a minute. If we can't use it here, why would we accept that into our food supply? Like, that can't be right either. So it's starting to really just, again, asking the questions, but then speaking with your pocketbook, right? Don't buy it. Just don't buy it. Make your own stuff. You don't need, we don't need cereal. Cereal is to me is like one of the biggest farces of food deception. Cereal it's not nutritious. Oh, they're like, oh, it's fortified with nutrients. Do you know why it's fortified? Because they strip the nutrients out and then they have to add nutrients back in, which are usually in the form of synthetic forms. So how's that? Like, it's not in its natural form. And to me, I want things that are in their most natural form. Stephanie, Idaho Garden Girl says, yes, I've been so focused on healthy eating, organic, pesticide-free, herbicide-free for decades. I know. So it's frustrating when you come back and you have this, you see that there's this chemical in your system. So you just have to keep fighting the good fight, which is, you just have to consider the fact that things might be worse had you not been living this way, right? Happy Max says, the oatmeal has made me sad. I'm growing my own come spring. I never even thought about that, because I do like oatmeal. But I have a little, because I've got a little mental thing about it with the glyphosate. And I do like when I buy oatmeal, it usually ends up going rancid because I'll only eat it for a little bit of time in the winter. Um, but I will only buy non-GMO organic, which is hard to find both of those. But I'll only eat it for a short period of time, and then I will never eat it in the summer, just because I don't know, I just don't. Um, it's one of those like I don't know. It's kind of like this heavy food that feels like it's only appropriate in the winter for me and my body. Do what you want to do, but make sure that if you're going to have oatmeal, then make sure that it's non-genetically modified and that it's organic. So going back to the food. So one of the stories that I wanted to tell you was years ago, so this whole argument with cereals has been going on forever, for as long as I can remember, as being a healthcare advocate. So I'm going to say, probably 25, 30 years, something like that. And so what happened was the cereal companies were advertising. They still advertise to kids, just so you know. So the cereal companies, I need to look this up here too. Cereal. Gosh, I can't spell. Advertising to kids. Okay. So years ago, the FDA said the cereal companies could no longer advertise to kids if the ingredient label, if the ingredients were a certain number of grams on the label. And so the cereal companies were like, okay, well, what do we do about that? Well, guess what they did? So they didn't stop advertising to kids. They changed the food label. Like, they did not change the ingredients of the cereals. They changed the food label. They made the serving size smaller, which brought the grams of sugar under where the FDA said it had to be in order to advertise for kids. I mean, think about that. They were like, problem solved. And so instead of the FDA saying your crap cereal, you need to remove sugar. So instead of being that specific and saying you've got to get the sugar out of your product, they said you can't advertise to kids if the grams on the label are of whatever it was. I feel like 25 grams. I don't know. I'm going back a few years, thinking that it's 25 grams, but I mean, I could be wrong. And so then they just ended up changing the food label so that it would reflect less grams of sugar. And then they didn't have to change they had to change nothing about their formula, their recipes, how they produce the product or anything. So the deception has been in place for years. And it's not like I said, the FDA could have easily said, remove the sugar, lower the sugar in your product. Because let's think about this too. If the serving size of a cereal is 1 cup, let's just say it's 1 cup. Does anybody eat 1 cup of cereal? Like, anybody? No. Like, you eat like 2 to 3 cups, and then maybe you go back for a second. But then what they do is they cut it in half. Now the serving size is a half a cup or 3/4 of a cup or whatever that is. Is anybody eating less than that? Are you like, oh, okay, well, I want to make sure I have less sugar then, so I'm going to only eat, half of that? No, nobody's paying attention to that. So it was the most deceptive smoke and mirrors campaign. And then the FDA was like, well, we told them they can't advertise to kids anymore if they have blah, 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 blah. And then the cereal companies are like, yes, it's only, 25 grams or 20 grams now, but they did not reveal that they had actually changed their label and lowered the content of the serving size. So it's really deceptive, and we have to just be paying attention as consumers. Originally, Dr. Kellogg wanted yogurt and cereal enema. Oh my God, that's disgusting. And then, yes, the suggested serving size is never okay. How many people actually eat the suggested serving size? Never. Hold on, I got a sneeze coming. Hold on. Whew. Sorry about that. Excuse me. And so Happy Mac says, Uncle Al, did you ever see that movie about Dr. Kellogg and what a wackadoodle he was? It was hysterical. So Happy Mac, that is, thank you for the bless yous. I have seen stories about Kellogg, and he was, he had that, like, I don't want to call it an insane. It wasn't an insane asylum. What would you call it? It was an asylum of sorts. And yeah, it was pretty crazy what he was doing. By the way, Kalamazoo, Michigan is home to the Kellogg Corporation, which is here in Michigan. So, institution. Yes, he had an institution. And so Idaho Garden Girl says, suggested serving size used to be 1 cup. Then they changed it to half. Meanwhile, everybody pours a bowl full, which is probably a couple cups, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, nobody's paying attention. And yes, the bowls get bigger. I saw that somewhere also where it was like, current day, our plates just keep getting bigger. So we pile on more food. And our bowls are bigger, and we just, we're just a society of consumers, and this is part of the obesity epidemic. This is our chronic health epidemic. We're metabolically unhealthy. I remember my have a story about a woman that I know that and I won't say how I know her, because I don't need anybody backtracking, connecting any dots, but she broke her femur. She was about, so I think she might have been about 60 at the time. I think she's 70, so she's in her 70s, young 70s now. So she might have been 60 in a couple of years. And she broke her femur. Now, the femur bone is your thigh bone. It's like the hardest bone in the body to break, maybe next to your jawbone. But so we'll just call it the hardest bone in the body to break. And she stepped up a curb, and she said she clipped her toe on the curb, and as she was falling, she felt her femur snap. Now, that clipping of her toe on the curb, that was not enough of a force to break a femur. So in order for you to break a femur, your bones have to be so brittle that your bones are just going to collapse under pressure. That's what happens. So this is when we talk about metabolic health and metabolic fitness, is that if we are not metabolically healthy, it's crazy stuff like that can happen to us. And then we're like, but I was taking my calcium every day. But if you still have this overall underlying health issue that you're not connecting the dots to, then yes, things like stepping up a curb and clipping your foot, it can actually cause a disastrous effect. So, and yes, the bowls get bigger for sure. Let's see. Rick says, I'm guilty. I added more sugar to my milk for Kellogg's cornflakes. No, like, why do we even need cornflakes? That's what I'm like. Rick says, I've had bone density scans. Interesting. So as a man, so oftentimes with men, they don't do bone density scans because it's like, they're like, oh, men are fine. And this whole nonsense of we need milk for strong bones. That's actually a complete farce. That was a massive marketing campaign by the dairy industry. So we do not need milk for strong bones. My daughter's almost 20 and she's always been very strong and healthy. And I took her in, she broke her wrist. I took her into to the hospital, and this young, very young, pediatrician comes in, and she's like trying to lecture me on health. And I'm like, honey, you are 30 years younger than me, 20 years younger than me. She was like, your daughter needs milk. And I'm like, you need to get out of my face, because no, she does not need milk. I'm like, does she look like she's not thriving? She broke her wrist, like she fell, had a serious injury. So yeah, that's, again, it's these farces that have been fed to us, no pun intended, that we believe because of really great marketing. And so I would always question the marketing, especially like when you see things on TV. This goes for anything. When you see it on TV and it's told it's good for you, or even if it's bad for you, you have to look at that with a question mark and say, is it bad for me? Is it really bad for me? Well, why would it be bad for me? Is it good for me? Well, why would it, if something's being hammered at you that it's really good for you, you got to go, why is it good for me? This is, we got into, during COVID, it was, well, you must get this jab because it's good for you and it'll help. But it was being shoved down everybody's throat and forced upon us. Those are things that should create question marks in your head, right? So always ask the questions. Is it really good for me? And if you're telling me it's good for me, then the question becomes why. So always ask the questions, and always be advocating for yourself in these situations, because you're the only one that's going to advocate. When you go into your doctor's office, you need to be able to ask these questions. You need to be able to have these conversations. Now, your doctor is probably not going to be able to answer the questions. And if you take questions to him or her, then my only hope is that you start to create some enlightenment and get them to start thinking these things. So, medical doctors are taught that they don't treat you as the human. What I mean by that is you go in and you have a symptom, or you have a set of symptoms. So a medical doctor's job is to take those set of symptoms and find a diagnosis for it. Once they have a diagnosis, then they can say, oh, this drug treats that thing. And that is not you as a whole human. So you really need to be finding somebody who can treat you as a whole human and say, what is the root cause? What is actually happening here that your body needs, that it's deficient in, that we can help it become more metabolically sound? And maybe it is a gut issue. Maybe it's a dietary issue. Maybe you're not moving too much or as much as you should. Maybe you're not sleeping well. But this is where finding someone like myself who practices functional medicine can actually help get you in the right direction and treat you as a whole human rather than a cluster of symptoms and just give a diagnosis and then start prescribing medication, because that is not the way we need to be going through life. So, Uncle Al says, I make almond milk with white wine. Got it. Instead of drinking lots of water, can milk be a substitute for water? So, um, and I'm assuming that's a serious question. So, but um, so there's a lot of water in milk. So there would be some level of hydration. I happen to think that milk is so I actually know that milk and gluten are the two most highly allergenic things that people can consume. So, for a lot of people who have chronic health issues, I will immediately take them off of dairy because it's really, really inflammatory. It causes a lot of mucus formation. It can create damage in the gut. If you're going to drink milk, then I always recommend find a raw milk source. Like just go as natural as you can. Now, I do make my own yogurt and I buy a particular kind of milk. It's 100% organic. It's from the A2 cows, so they're less inflammatory and it is low heat pasteurized. I finally just found a raw milk source because I do want my yogurt, which has all the good beneficial bacteria in it, but I'm not going to make that from crap milk. So it's making those kinds of choices in your diet, and I don't think we need to be drinking milk on a daily basis. Again, if I make yogurt, I might have a tablespoon or two a day. It's not like you're drinking a giant glass of milk. We don't need that. Um, Stephanie says, I didn't get the jab because they first said it was for elderly with chronic illness. I'm not in those categories. Then I saw all these younger people getting it. So I knew something was fishy. I know, right? We just have to go, what? And you got to follow your gut on that. Happy Max says, we all need unfiltered sunshine every day. It's so bizarre to me that things have gone so extreme to avoid all sun without the crap ton of SPF. The lack of sun causes cancer. What the is going on? Oh, I saw the H as an F. Do you see where my head always goes? Yeah, I've talked about this a lot, is that we are sunshine deficient. And there's so much about sun. Now we can take vitamin D. Now we're coming in, we're coming into the winter months. I spent a lot of time outside today. I had on just a small tank top and a pair of shorts and it still was, it was like 73. So it wasn't overly hot, but it wasn't like, hot enough to be, I guess I could have laid out, but I had too much to do. Anyway, the idea was like, I had work to do outside. I needed to be in the garden and I wanted to make sure my body was getting as much vitamin D as possible. And so, but I did not. And I love what you said about the unfiltered sunshine is that we have to stop putting the stuff on our bodies. We have to stop putting sunscreen, which is toxic, and not allowing our bodies to produce the vitamin D. So we're doing two things there. We put sunscreen on and we block the sun's beneficial rays from producing our bodies being able to produce vitamin D. And then we put this toxic chemical on, but the heat from the sun comes and it opens up the pores and it drives that toxic chemical into the system. So now you've just increased the toxic load of your body. So I'm not a sunscreen fan by any means. I understand people will burn much easier than others. So I do recommend put clothing on. If you have to wear sunscreen, it's got to be a mineral-based sunscreen, but always go out and get unfiltered sunshine. It's so, so critical to our health. Yeah, again, this is another comment. There's no money in being healthy. That is for sure. And yeah, we're all a lab experiment. Organic Farms milk. I don't know if that's a brand you're talking about, but yes. So serious question. Yep. And so I hope I answered that for you. But I agree with you 100% is that we have to stop demonizing the sun. The problem as we come into the winter months, and I hope everybody takes vitamin D, but the problem with that is that we're going to take D3. That's really the most absorbable form. It's the most common. It's the most helpful. However, when we get sunlight and our bodies convert and make vitamin D, it's making all kinds of different forms. It's utilizing all different kinds of forms of vitamin D. So vitamin D3 it's kind of this one trick pony. I do find it as like it's sort of the necessary element in our health to get us through the winter, because we're not going to be able to get outside when it's freezing cold and there's no sun. So we have to do something, in my opinion. Now, there's things like red light therapy that you can utilize, and red light therapy will produce certain levels of vitamin D, but we've got to, there's nothing that will take the place of the sun. There's foods that we can eat, organ meats, things like that. So don't be afraid to make sure that you're amping up your foods that are going to improve your vitamin D levels in your body. But nothing takes the place of beautiful daily sunlight. And, that sun, when we get to the summer months and people are like, it's too hot outside. Hey, go inside and I'm going to close the shades. And oh my God, and the sun's too bright and I'm going to put my sunglasses on. And we just demonize it. It's like, go out and embrace it. It's the sun. It's the nurturing of the body from the sun that we absolutely need, that's going to save you from so many illnesses. In fact, it was the 1918 flu, what was it? The Spanish flu. And they actually took people outside and put people outside in the sun to give them sunlight, because they knew that sunlight somehow helped people's immune system be better. There's countless stories and studies that show that people who are sick, when they're exposed to sunlight, it improves their body's ability to fight and improves the immune system. It is so critical to make sure you're embracing that so much. So Rick says, I have to say the jab saved me when I got it. For someone with low immunity, I was only down with a temperature 38 degrees and sore throat for 2 days. I'm up to number 6 now. Number 6, what? Number six jab? You've had 6 times? And says red and white container with cartoon cow at Pest. Oh, the brand. Okay. Yeah, I buy, it's called Kelowna brand, kit with a K. And it's actually pretty good. So, Uncle Al says, I got busted by ATF, fermented too high alcohol, 250. That's a lot. Oh my God. Yes, I figured that. Yeah, you get COVID back then. COVID jab. Yes. Yes, I got that. So yeah. So this whole thing, again, tonight's episode was really about just helping us get a bigger grasp on, we can be mad that they put this stuff into our food, or we can just get even and say, I'm just not going to buy it. Like, why would I buy that stuff? I don't need it. It does not serve me. I don't need all the food. Here, I'll type it in here. It's called Kelowna. Let me see if I can find it and drop a. The only thing I don't like, so there's Kelowna Supernatural. Here we go. Here it is. It's the organic cream on top. It's this one. There, it's that one. It is in a plastic carton. Now, there's some other milk here locally that comes in a glass jar, glass vessel. But yeah, so this is non-homogenized, low temp, pasteurized from grass-fed cows. So yeah, it's pretty good. But like I say, I don't drink milk. I just use it for I just use it to make my yogurt, and it makes really good yogurt. But where was I going with that? I don't remember. Lost my train of thought. Yeah. So okay. Go back over here. Okay. And all right. Yeah, so the whole the whole idea, I think I remember where I was going with this. The whole idea is that, you know, vote with your money. And what that means is that you can be mad about the crap they're putting in our food. You can buy it, and then you're putting money into their bank accounts, or you can just say, I'm not buying that stuff anymore. So vote with your dollar and make sure that you are not being you're not being pulled into that that environment that you're like, why are they putting this junk in my food? If that's what they're doing, don't buy it. Just you have to just say, I'm enough already. I'm not doing it. So that's really the only way that we're going to fight against the insanity and make sure that if profits start to go down for these companies, then they'll be like, oh, okay, maybe we should start to change things. So, and I'm super grateful to people like Food Babe and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Kelly and Casey Means. These were just really incredible people who, in fact, let me drop in here because I think I think I have a link to the whole thing in here. And you'll want to go watch this. It's really, really enlightening. As far as again, like, what are they putting in our food? How are we is that how can we, what can we do to actually fight and advocate for ourselves? That's going to be really important. And I mean, they're doing it in putting things in our baby food. It's crazy. So let me see, is it here? The event will start a petition. Okay. I thought I had it here, so I'm really sorry. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop this link here for you guys. Okay, so this is Food Babe. So go to her site, and on her site, I saw it in the blog somewhere as far as the where to watch. I'm going to click around here a couple more times. Where to she's actually coming. Oh my gosh, they're going to be at Kellogg's on October 15th. Oh my gosh, I feel like I need to go to this. This could be super cool. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. All right, that's a whole nother thing that I'm seeing here. But so what I saw on here, which I would encourage you guys to go find it, was she had the link for the whole thing in Washington. And I don't know why I can't get back to it. But I would encourage you to, follow her. I've been following her for years. So she's just incredibly, she's just a great advocate for our health, for our food system, and, for our kids. So we have to pay attention here. So, all right. So there's that. And Rick says, I'm having steak and onions and potatoes for lunch. It sounds amazing. I smoked a pork shoulder. And what else did I make with it? I grilled eggplant, and I grilled a bunch of peppers because I'm going to can those or freeze them. So yeah, it was a food preservation day for sure. But yeah, that sounds like a lovely lunch. Okay, you guys. All right. Wow, we've been on for an hour and 20 minutes. Thank you so much for all your questions, for all your comments, for your support. Continue to follow, share, like. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please do so. Make sure you share this channel with others. Invite people in, and we will see you on the next one. See you tomorrow for Reset Monday, and I'll see you Thursday for Chiropractic is Sexy. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm here for you. I'm here to help you make sure that you're making the best choices and advocating for yourself and your children. So have a nice evening yourself, and we'll talk to you soon. Love you guys so much. Thank you for being here.